All right. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Advocacy at Work. I am your host, Tim McDonald, and today I am thrilled to have Matthew Zachary on with me. How you doing, Matt?
Hello there, Tim. Good to see you.
It's great to have you on here. I know I briefly met you at one of Man Up to Cancer's Gathering of Wolves. I think it was, my memory is not the same anymore, but I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but I know it was
Yeah, I think it was
recent, not
last
too long
year.
ago.
Yeah.
um, but we just met briefly, and I know I've been following you online, and I can't wait to jump into this. So why don't we just take it and tell us your story?
Yeah, how much time we got?
Well, we usually go for a half an hour, but I'll take whatever you want to give me.
All right. In the womb in 1974, right? You know the whole story, right? I am one of the lucky pediatric cancer survivors from the 1990s, where not many of us had this success and came out, I would say, unscathed with a nice little asterisk after it, because just never look under the hood. You look great, right? That whole thing. But I've been privy to 30 years of American healthcare and American history and just American politics. And I tend to approach what I do today not by having been defined by what I've been through, but how it's informed me, my choices, my careers, where I've wound up, what I've chosen to do. The dime store, and by the way, everyone listening and watching, I'm very Googleable. I think I'm maybe the only Matthew Zachary on Google. There might be more, but I've been on Google for 30 years or 20 years. So odds are, if you search Matthew Zachary, you'll find me. And if it's not a cancer guy, you got the wrong guy. So, but I was a classically trained concert pianist going to grad school. I somehow ignored the fact that I couldn't use my left hand for a while out of nowhere entering senior year, ignored all of that side effect stuff with headaches and whatnot. Got through the semester, had a fainting spell after getting misdiagnosed with everything but what I had, which is basically a terminal pediatric brain tumor in my cerebellum. I'm laughing because it's just hysterical how, like, we chalk it, we walk it off, we chalk it up, right? And as invincible 21-year-olds or whatever. And long story short, massive craniotomy, like gulag radiation, declined chemo because it didn't do anything for brain cancer back in the 1990s, and just kind of lost my life, but didn't die, and meandered the 90s. Found my first cancer buddy. Speaking of Man Up to Cancer, found my first cancer buddy 7 fucking years later, because I didn't know it was possible to not be alone. There was really nothing out there. I want to give perspective and history, like I said. But this guy, Craig, ticked all the boxes, and he was bald and Jewish and had brain cancer in his 20s and was from New York City. And we went to Binghamton together, and I know him. So that was like the holy shit. Wow, there's people like me. And then Craig was like this Wizard of Oz guy that pulled back this curtain. Everything went from sepia to color, and I joined Livestrong. And that was the start of what I thought I could be doing with the mad that I had. Roaming the earth like Cain, having no purpose except fixing toner for ad agencies. So that's the dime store chapter 1. Chapter 2 is in the early 2000s. This was around the time, again, for perspective, that, oh, you're a person too. It isn't just your tumor. So this whole notion of survivorship was a word, and psychosocial well-being was the jargon of the time. There was no mental health yet. Rehab was still stuck in like Dr. Drew world and drugs and whatever. And we were just fighting for the right to survive with a little dignity, right? It wasn't black and brown and religion and gender. None of that. It didn't matter then. Now it's a better problem to have, because we've kind of created this ebb tide that let more things matter to who you want to be when you ideally live beyond this, if that's ideally where you hopefully wind up. And I launched a nonprofit called Stupid Cancer, which at the time was really irreverent for its day. Everything was pink blenders and pink jets and yellow wristbands and pretty people in photographs looking perfectly fine, like today's ads. And I just wanted to be very Gen X about it, very angry, but smart, satirical, sardonic, pop culture populism. There was no populism in anything back then. Livestrong was kind of like a kumbaya, who served a great purpose. I give it full cred, but there was really nothing that gave people permission to be angry and a tribe to belong to where you sort of parked your body parts outside the gate. So we just became what was fascinating and irreplicable, Tim. There was no real internet back then. Everything was very analog. Everything was very guerrilla marketing, and we had to forge as we went. And the shiny objects were, what's this? MySpace? What's this? Facebook? What's this? Twitter? What's this? YouTube? We just kept jumping on everything new. So we were first, including my having a microphone. And I was broadcasting a live talk radio show over like dial up, on Windows, right? Whatever the hell that was back then. There was no iTunes or podcasts or whatever. But it was just like, I look back and it was so much like, it was a terrible privilege to have so much fun because you're meeting people, they're sick, they're dying, but you're giving them a good time to figure this out together. And that sort of led to 13 years running it, building the global young adult world, meeting folks like Trevor Maxwell, shout out to that guy at Man Up to Cancer, and seeing this beautiful sort of like these disciples of the kindling that we planted 20 years ago really give birth to today's modern cancer community. That's kind of my story.
Man, it's just amazing to think. And I loved how you put that into perspective, the time, because I think so many people today that are younger than you, younger than me, don't remember, like, Facebook has not been around forever,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, not even the internet has been around forever. So.
No, it's just this is not like poor Gen Zers, this isn't that. It's understanding where we've come from, which is why I chose to write the book now and not, earlier. We're at a critical point in American history. I mean, it's always like challenging times, right? There's always, we grew up in like under global thermonuclear war threat, different scary, right? Very different scary. But today, now, the looming threat isn't that anymore. And the modern challenge in oncology is health insurance and what they're doing to us. And that's the umbrella that I give perspective on, because I say different, better, worse problems to have. We're not all dying as much, which is good. It kind of just died in the 80s and 90s. Mortality was really high. There was no anything. Today, it's better, it's worse, but it's different. So that kind of wraps up where I want the younger generations to understand perspective, not a history lesson, but it's differently shitty today.
Well, before we jump into what you're working on now and the book, I always like to have people define what advocacy means to you, so that when we use that word moving forward, the listener understands what we're meaning.
Yeah. No, and that's a great question, because it's user defined. And I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that word. I mean, I remember Larry Kramer and ACT UP and the AIDS quilt and all these things. And to me, that was like advocacy or activism. I think that was the word they used back then. And when I met my cancer buddy, Craig, he was on the board of directors of a very prestigious DC Beltway group called the National Coalition for Cancer Survivorship. They are the oldest led survivorship policy group in DC. They're responsible for so many things, including the Cancer Rehabilitation Act and the Affordable Care Act and all these incredible policy initiatives over the last 30 years or 40 years. Craig asked me, how would you like to be a cancer advocate? And I said, what the fuck is a cancer advocate? Right? I didn't know what that meant, but his answer was just so brilliantly codifying. He's like, you can help the next you have a much less shittier time. Like, all right, sign me up. Where do I go? And for many people today, that's what it means to them. That's why people join communities. They don't want to start a nonprofit or write a book or start a blog. They just want to be there for the next them in the hopes that they help one person have a slightly less shittier time. We're not here to cure their stuff. We're not here to tell them to go, drink piss and go on a trip to Puerto Rico. We're here to just say it's totally sucks. Let's have it be terrible together. Here's what I learned. And that to me is like a very necessary 1.0 definition of advocacy. Other people kind of crank it up to 1.1 or 1.2. They want to start a blog. They maybe want to start a community. They maybe want to lose a bet like me and Trevor and start a nonprofit organization, and fight for grant money and climb up different hills. You may want to go to DC and yell at your Congress people. There are different ways to do that. But my definition today, which I outlined in the book, that I call Advocacy 2.0, is really more about civic power and organizing under single issues, because of the encroachment of health insurance as our Lord and Savior of determining whether we live or die.
Wow. Well, let's get into that book now, because I have started reading it. I haven't been all the way through it yet, but I am just find myself shaking my head every page I read about understanding and have either a personal story or know somebody who's had a personal story about what you describe in it. So tell us why this book, We the Patients, and why 30 years into your survivorship from your diagnosis.
Should we just hold it up together to show people?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're going to give them guilt. Have you not bought my book yet? What was important about writing this book is I didn't want it to be a memoir. And I think that was an interesting note for lots of people. Oh, Matt just wrote a memoir. And I think that's a knee jerk because most people that write books that have trauma write a memoir. And there's nothing wrong with that. But having been at the desk of Stupid Cancer for 13 and a half years and having received hundreds of amazing books about stories and memoirs, I didn't feel that was the readership of the country needed to hear or feel or see or think. And having worn many hats, having sat in many different seats, having lived a very independent crow's nest view, 360 of politics and policy and nonprofits and media, I go back to a line I wrote in the book about Mr. Rogers, which is, what do you do with the mad that you feel? And Craig said you can make someone else's life suck less. People are mad for different reasons today. It's one thing to be pissed about you didn't ask to get sick and you're just struggling through this. You're a caregiver or you're a parent, whatever it is. That's enough. But to be fighting health insurance more than fighting your cancer, your rare disease, whatever it is, fighting for your kids, asthma medicine, that's the new thing to be really angry about. I started writing the book before the murder of Brian Thompson, before Doge destroyed cancer research and pediatric cancer research, before the ACA subsidy billion douchebag H1 bill showed up, the one beautiful shit show. That all really reinformed me as I was writing the book, oh, now I know what America needs to feel, right? It needs to feel like not helpless. Because I mentioned this at the retreat. I don't care who you voted for, but no one voted to have this happen to them and their families. And this isn't a castigation of party. This is my belief that 90% of the country is perfectly normal and that 99% of the noise is made by 0.01% of the assholes on both sides. And you vote the way you vote, but what are the single issues that matter to you? And this wasn't really a big deal, 4 years ago, 6 years ago. We were just coasting on the beauty of what ACA did, as flawed as it was, and I'll be very poignant about that point. But at the same time, this book needed to not just tell the story, the historical background. It starts in 1910 when Teddy Roosevelt proposed universal health care, and God knows that J.P. Morgan bribed the AMA through the AFL to say, go fuck yourself, because God forbid doctors let patients have rights. And the AMA has been my thoughts on the AMA, right? So, as do many people have their thoughts on the AMA. But what I felt was missing in the American narrative is that helplessness is a different helplessness now. Because today, I mentioned better problems to have. There are resources like Man Up to Cancer, Stupid Cancer, the triage cancer, cancer in careers. There are all sorts of magnificent infrastructural systems that didn't exist. Hopefully, you are made aware of some of them, or you glock into some of them because of luck and fortune. But what's missing is, what do we do to fight health insurance determining our fate? The utter malfeasant abuse that the system has wreaked upon the American people. And I sound very political when I say that, but no one disagrees with me that you might like your health insurance because it works for you when everything is going smoothly, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But that it's gotten so it's gotten just so malignant that it's become predatory on the fact that it can just summarily, for no reason, to say, no, you can't have this. So they make money and you die. The purpose of the book is to help America understand it's time to organize, like the NRA did back when it was not as terrible as it is today, but I'm pro too, and I'm for gun law and control like a normal person, right? Fine, have your guns, get them out of the schools, like smart things, background checks, some normal things that I know 80% of the country wants. Middle of the road, normal people, right? And we need to organize to have civic power, because that's the only thing that moves our congressional leaders is electability. And that's the sad part. And I'm not going to get into Citizens United and the bullshit of corporate people are people, but that is what I believe is the one missing thing now, is the next great second generation of patients' rights movements. And that is we the patients.
And so has the way that you think about advocacy, and I know it's the definition you gave when you first learned it, has it changed like since you first heard that definition to where you are today and what you understand about our healthcare system?
Look, cancer's not going away, right? There's always going to be need to be there for the next you. I'm not taking that away. I'm not saying don't do that. This is we have to catch people when they fall. You fall over the waterfall, like in Indiana Jones, right? When the raft falls from the plane and the plane goes over the waterfall, that's getting into the cancer store. Like, boom, you're just done. Then somehow the raft gets you somewhere, but you wind up in a place you don't know where you want to be, and you have to be some random Indian guy's got to extend his hand and take you to the palace, right? That's not going away. But there's a level above it, an upstream strategy now, that advocacy now means organizing and a return to activism. And activism isn't shaming anymore. I know what Larry Kramer did, ACT UP. They shamed the government. And it worked because they somehow figured out that, oh my God, enough people care about this that we're not going to get elected unless we play nice and lie and pretend we give a shit about, the gay community dying. And that's really what it was, pandering for electability. That's what happened. That's why George Bush 1 got elected, right? That's what happened. He just pandered around after Nancy Reagan and said, oh, look, gay people, yay, right? That bullshit, right? But where are we today is we have to look at that as an example of civic power meets shaming, meets policy. And what's the one thing that every cancer patient, family, caregiver would want beyond not dying, because you can't really regulate that? Today, advocacy, activism, and organizing means we do not want our health insurance policy to dictate whether we live or die, that our doctors are our sacred bond in a perfect situation most of the time. And then the common threat is getting access to the drugs that we need to live our lives on our terms as long as possible. That is the single issue. No one can go broke. No one can be denied care because insurance isn't your doctor. And there should be regulations, oversight, and transparency on all the shit that we get disabused for.
Let's take a little break from the advocacy in the book.
Yeah.
And have a little bit of fun.
I'm getting the vapors.
I know. And we'll get to know you a little bit better, Matt. So first question, real simple. What's your favorite color?
Green.
And I'm going to like this one because I know you just told us you were a classically trained pianist and composer. Who is your favorite band or musician?
That is a very hard question for a trained professional musician because it's a toss-up. Billy Joel really wasn't a band. Unlike, Springsteen has the E Street Band. Billy Joel wasn't a band, so he gets thrown out. I really want to say Rush or Genesis if I have to go modern. But if you really want to go back in time, it's got to be, Benny Goodman.
Awesome. I love it. What's a place that you've always wanted to visit but haven't yet?
Reykjavik.
Beautiful. Now, this one is one most people stop and think about a little bit. What is one thing that most people do not know about you?
I was expelled from nursery school at the age of 4.
Oh, that is great. So
that's a good story. That's a good story.
I do have one big question for you, though, because I know your book ends talking about how we, the revolution. So if there are no gatekeepers, no budget limits, no waiting for permission, what does one day of that revolution actually look like?
My request of people listening and following and getting angry with me is to organize. But what does that manifest as, I think, is your question. A day when the civil liberties of the cancer community are not infringed upon by the private sector's profit motives.
And so I'm thinking here, Matt, that you're wanting patients to do this not only for themselves, but unite together so that we make a united change in realizing the power that we all have if we do this as a revolution.
Organizing is really about sort of dropping your ego, dropping your other political agendas. You can be pro this and anti that and pro this and anti that. But at the end of the day, if you believe that health insurance is now determining your fate and crushing your family's money and throwing you into debt with malevolent capitalist intentions that are completely malfeasant and abusive of their powers given to them, then that's your issue. You organize under that specific issue. I don't care if you're gay, straight, black, brown, green, blue, you want this, you want that. No one that I'm aware of wants health insurance to bankrupt them. No one wants health insurance to get in the way of their care. No one wants their health insurance to play God and tell their doctor what to do. And no one wants the CEOs making $100 million a year when families are diluting their baby food to afford chemo.
Perfect. Matt, how can people find out more about the book and buy it and find out more about We the Patients?
WeThePatients.org is in its brilliant infancy. We have one request of the American people is to please take our national poll. It is a bipartisan, apolitical, unprecedented, first of its kind national poll on the consumer perspective of healthcare across different zip codes. You can find the book on that website, or you can just go to MatthewZachary.com, and the book is pretty much everywhere. And I want to thank you and everyone else for your completely unbiased and totally voluntary 5-star Amazon review.
Well, thank you so much, Matt. And thank you for joining us at another Advocacy at Work. Right after you get out and buy We the Patients, make sure that you subscribe at advocacyatwork.com so that you can watch not only this podcast, but other podcasts that we have each week releasing on Thursdays. And can't wait to see you next week. So Matt, thank you once again for being our guest. I'm so excited about this, and I can't wait to jump in a little bit more and finish this book this week and really start doing this, because I've had personal stories about this myself and feel very passionate about it as well. So I can't wait to join others and really make this revolution happen.
Thank you, Tim. It's a pleasure to be here. Good luck with everything.